plants co-evolved, and they developed very sophisticated communication systems to allow for, this sort of coexistence and even in some cases mutually beneficial situations. All animals across all species have receptors all along the gastrointestinal tract and even on the epithelium of the skin that can respond to plants.
This is Dr. Phil Stay with 𝗻𝗄𝑖cs. I'm interviewing Dr. 𝗻𝗶 𝗍𝗃. She's Director of Development and Deployment in 𝗃𝗃𝗃. She's with them some years. We had a conversation before we started a larger conversation. So I'd like to hear, Emma, some about your background, your education, what you're doing now.
Sure, that sounds great. Thanks. Let's see. So I'm a physiologist. I'm a dairy physiologist by training and studied lactation physiology across mammals really, but my specialty was in dairy physiology and management. And I then did a postdoc in endocrinology in a medical school. And I left academia after that to go to industry. I've always had a passion for connecting science to industry and making that connection. So it seemed like a sort of a logical next step. And I spent about 10 years as part of a feed additive company called 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝘀𝘁𝘀. And it was there, it's a Swiss company. It does still exist, although now it's owned by ADM. And it was there that I really started my journey on the topic that we're discussing today, and really got to be focused on gut physiology of medicinal plants. In those days, it was mostly essential oils and plant extracts and how they can influence animal production and health. So I've been doing that for about 15 years now in a variety of roles across species. I'm American. I live in Vermont in the Northeast, but I have lived in Europe as well. And I'm currently my role is as part of 𝗦𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. 𝗦𝗃𝗃 is a feed company, a Dutch cooperative that operates across the whole continuum of feed for aquaculture, livestock, companion animals, and also feed additives. And my role is really working with the different businesses of 𝗦𝗃𝗃 on product development, and very specifically in the phytotechnology space, which is what we call the space of medicinal plants.
𝗏 Nutrition North America. Everything we do is driven by passion and backed by science. We support producers in accelerating their journey towards sustainable food production by understanding their challenges and bringing tangible solutions. 𝗏 Nutrition gives our clients access to extensive knowledge, expertise, and resources. Our team of trained advisors is proud to offer on-farm services backed by global research and industry-leading innovation. We go beyond feed. We are dedicated to supporting success together.
Well, that's great. That's great. So tell us a little bit more about phytochemicals. You had a journey from doing, I guess, hormones now to doing plant hormones or plant, when they say hormone compounds.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the phytogenetic. What are y'all working on?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting connection there. When you think about sort of endocrinology and physiology and how different systems talk to each other. Well, to be totally honest with you, when I first started working with 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃, I was really skeptical about this. And, it's pretty typical in the West, right? We're skeptical of traditional medicine in general. And unless you have really clear scientific explanation of how things are working, then it can be hard to believe. And so I had to experience it for myself through doing research with scientists all over the world, and mostly in universities. We did collaborations. And then I started to see for myself that it's real. And, why are we feeding these types of ingredients to animals, I think is a question that not enough people talk about. If you read papers these days, still today, it shocks me, but the introduction is always talking about changes in regulatory contexts and getting rid of antibiotics. And that's really the core of it all, is that animals and plants co-evolved, and they developed very sophisticated communication systems to allow for, this sort of coexistence and even in some cases mutually beneficial situations. All animals across all species have receptors all along the gastrointestinal tract and even on the epithelium of the skin that can respond to plants. So if you think about ipecac can make you vomit, morphine for pain relief, cannabis for anti-nausea, chili or mint for heat or cooling with sports injury. So those are just some kind of easy, tangible examples, but basically this is all based on communication between plants and animals. So that's sort of the why that I think is really important. And understanding that why is also important if we're ever going to get to really taking advantage of the full power of plants in animal production. Because as it is today, we've really sort of forced them into this niche corner of replacing chemicals in feed, when there's a regulatory restriction. So, I mean, even we talked about it before we started recording, and it's true that today, most of the time in conventional broiler situations, you don't even have a conversation, even though these types of products and these types of phytochemicals could bring value. It's just never been explored in that context because you're always thinking about replacing the chemical tools that were available before.
But let's just delve into that a little bit more. And I think it's a very interesting topic is, doing better, not just replacement, but doing better. And do you have any examples of that or maybe some products that you all are working on that would make even a conventional bird better?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things, something, and a lot of what I'm talking about is really representing what we're doing at 𝗦𝗽liche today, because both my boss and I and the people I work with have been working in this space for many years. And so, of course, the essential oil story and natural antibiotic growth promoters and replacement to antibiotics, that has really been overexploited, and to be honest, we talked about this a little bit before, to be honest, there are some fabulous products out there. And there are many products where the expectations have not really been aligned with what the plant compounds can actually deliver. So that leads to confusion and disappointment and skepticism and even kind of a level of fatigue for the veterinarians who are exposed to all these products and have to make decisions. So that's a little bit of background for you there. But with respect to doing better, the way that we think about it at 𝗦𝗽liche is that, and many of us came from pancosma, so we were there in the beginning really talking about purity and single chemical and knowing exactly what the receptor was. And 15 years ago, that was necessary. If you're going to go to a veterinarian that's working for a large integrator, you have to be able to tell them what your product is doing. What we're trying to do today is appreciate that the communication between the plant and the animal is highly complex, and there's a level of sort of what I would call indigenous knowledge that around the world it's been known for thousands of years. We can't explain every single component, but it's still there and it happens, and we have to appreciate that. So what we do in 𝗦𝗽liche in terms of product development going forward, we do have essential oils that we work with, but we keep them full spectrum, meaning we keep it as close to the whole plant signature as possible, rather than working with single compound synthetics, for example. But when we also try to keep the plants in their natural state as much as possible while also standardizing, because of course you have to bring a consistent product. But that communication that happens, it can improve resilience. So some of the things that we're working on, of course, inflammation. This is a highly complex response. We're never targeting pathogens. We're always targeting the bird because that communication is what's critical. So if you use the right plants, which have evolved all these sophisticated tools to survive in their environment, those tools can be shared with the animal through the diet. If you target pathogens, they're always going to adapt. And most of the time, plants really don't target pathogens. Maybe in an in vitro setting, but when you're feeding even essential oils to a bird, you have to feed very high levels to actually be targeting pathogens. So doing better, I'm not sure, but doing it differently and smarter, and sometimes even doing it in a way that could be complementary to chemical drugs. So not replacing, not doing better, but doing it differently.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, though, when you said you're supporting the animal more so than fighting the pathogen. If you can help the host defend off a range of whatever, or help them heal faster from whatever, then that's a win. And you go back to, can you prove that? Well, not every time, right? Not every time do you have the same insult. And so that's what we went back to, some of the variation. So variation response could be a variation in challenge or environment. What about, you talked about uniformity of products and how important is that in the phytochemicals? Having
it's essential. So whether you're using an essential oil, a plant extract, a ground plant powder, which in a lot of cases have bad reputations, and that's a lot of times just due to low standardization. But ground plant powder can also be extremely powerful if the plant is the right one and the active ingredients are not volatile. Standardization is extremely important, and that can be one of the reasons for lack of consistent efficacy. So no matter what the format of the product is, it needs to always come with a really clear, certificate of analysis and traceability in feed, and so that the user can really rely on a consistent response. Mm-hmm.
I think that's excellent. How about uniformity of manufacture, then also be able to monitor the end users? That's both those are very important factors to see determination. And we talked about beforehand, before we got onto our recording, about training. The wide range of products are out there, and yourself have worked with many. And there's competitors to 𝗦𝗽liche as well. You're not the only one out there playing in the same space. How do we educate folks?
Yeah, this is something that I'm really passionate about because I see it over and over again. First of all, like the more senior vets who sort of went through all these changes and really very strictly view these products as gut health modifiers, alternative to antibiotics. They kind of get grouped into that sort of gut health portfolio. As well as the newer vets. So they come from two different perspectives, but the entire approach is sort of oversimplified, and that's not their fault. It's the lack of education, both in sort of the training of the veterinarian today. Like a modern veterinarian not being trained on medicinal plants, it blows my mind because then they have to leave and go into an industry setting and now start making choices and being bombarded with different suppliers. And then the more senior vets, it's almost important to take a step back and say, okay, you've been forced to use these types of things in this context, but what's the next chapter? What's next? And you see, some of the trends in the industry with going back to use of ionophore. In Europe, they never stopped using ionophore, but they're the biggest users of medicinal plants in poultry production. So, there's sort of a learning and a relearning. And then your question, how? I mean, the short answer is, I don't know. In 𝗦𝗃liche, we have some ideas. One of the things that I do often is I offer to give educational sessions of, especially the production people, how do you evaluate these type of things? What are the questions you should ask? What are the red flags? What can you expect from these types of products? Because at the end of the day, the supplier wants to solve your problem, whether or not they have the tools for your problem. And so it's important to be educated. So I think that suppliers today, and certainly that's how we're approaching it in the US, our brand is Celco. And we approach it, we say, we can have a meeting. We don't even have to talk about products. Let's talk about the space. Let's talk about why we're even using these types of things. And what are the questions you should be asking? What are the deal breakers? How do you make an informed decision, whatever that decision is? I mean, I think that's at least a good place to start, and then starting at the vet school even.
I guess maybe I have a bias from my previous experiences is having a data package. Having a package of controlled studies, that's important. Again, you can't control for everything nor test every parameter. Then have experiences. Folks have been using it. And of course, you look at the different places in the world. I think for U.S.-based producers, it's important to have a U.S.-based situation, whether it's density, whether it's litter, whether it's housing conditions, or particularly feed types. That's always a challenge.
Absolutely. So I can really relate to that because I spent 10 years in a European company, right? So in Celco US, which is our US brand, we do all of our product development in the US with the local team. So we say, okay, here's a concept for broilers. We'll do it in the context of high dietary copper, which wouldn't be done in Europe. With the feed that would be representative, we do everything in the US. And I think that's really important. I also think another thing that we did that I'm really proud of is really extensive dose response work. How low can you go? Can you go too high? What's the most economically efficient dose possible, which is really important today for broiler integrators. And like you said, that data package, let's see all the trials, even the ugly ones, where the products don't work, because no products work all the time. I think that's a really important piece too. And just being open about what we know, what we don't know, and what you can expect.
I think it's a good point to come back to setting expectations. The bad and the good, and then the average. I call it a meta-analysis. You get all your data together, and you have good conditions and bad conditions, and then you can, Mr. Customer, Miss Customer, you can expect somewhere in the middle here between the bad and the good is what we can probably attain.
Yeah, that's a very powerful tool, meta-analysis.
Any of the products you're currently working on, or new concepts or new ideas where 𝗦𝗃𝗀𝗃 is going?
Yeah. So it's been really fun in I would say in North America in general. We went from really focusing on our trace minerals and 𝗃𝗏, and we've expanded our portfolio now to include this phytogenic group. Our brand's called 𝗫𝗏𝗃 in the U.S. For the feed additive brand. But we actually started with essential oils for two reasons. One, because that's what the customers know. And the team in 𝗦𝗃𝗀𝗃, we have an amazing amount of expertise. So we have 𝗦𝗃𝗀𝗃 Exploration is the small product development group that I'm a part of. And we have, so myself, one person on my team, and my boss, we've all been working in the space for over 15 years. And then our discovery group has been working in phytopharmacy for humans for over 30 years. So we have a very, very powerful team with really unmatched expertise in terms of what can medicinal plants do. And what we said was, okay, for these first products, we're going to do the very best we can. We're going to design the best possible essential oil products we can, but we're going to let the animals tell us what the value is before we even start investing in understanding what's happening. So our broiler product, we just fed it to the birds. We did extensive dose response work, and then what it shakes out at the end of the day was a performance enhancer that brings 5 points of feed conversion. It's very consistent. And so that's the first product that's come to the market. We're also working on really potent anti-inflammatory medicinal plants. Those are sort of in development, as well as improving gut integrity. So that goes a little bit to what you spoke about, improving the resilience of the animal, not necessarily a specific pathogen. So there might be different environmental challenges, and they might not even be related to a pathogen specifically. So understanding what's the response in the animal that's causing the problem, and we really target that.
That's great. In terms of approaching a customer with that, if you've got a means to help them out almost any time, that's always going to be received. Of course, like you said, it's a wide, big field, and a lot of people playing. So differentiating yourselves, I guess maybe that's a question. How do you differentiate what you're doing versus maybe some of the others?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. So there are a couple of different things here, and knowing that I've worked in the space for a long time and have a lot of respect for many of the products that are out there. Well, not many, but at least a few. And so there are a couple of different ways that we're different. One is what I mentioned before, just the level of expertise that we have internally is absolutely top notch. It's unquestionably high in terms of our experience, both in the field with product development in the space, as well as all the internal knowledge we have about the different medicinal plants and how they work. The other way is our discovery and development process, which is we're completely vertically integrated from the biological modeling that we do to screen plants all the way to the final product. So we own the entire supply chain, and that gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of lead times, physical format. Does it need to be fed in water? Is the effective dose too low? It gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of how we can deliver that final product to the animal. And then, of course, since we have the protocols for the cultivation of the plants, we do the extractions, and the extraction technology has trade secrets. So we've sort of captured all of that inside our Center of Excellence, which is in Switzerland. And then our dedication to the space, we're really looking at, 20 years ago, we started exploring the idea of feeding essential oils to chickens. that has been very, very heavily exploited to the point that some products, you go on their website and they can solve every problem that you could possibly have. And that's simply not possible. Okay. And so what we're asking is, what's next? Let's really heavily invest in this space, because we know that we've just scratched the surface of what's possible. And so we want to take it to the next level. And in the US specifically, and even in Canada to a certain extent, we have over 100 plants that are AAFCO approved, can be put in the feed, and really haven't been explored for their medicinal properties. So we are actively investigating and investing heavily there as a company.
You have a lot of work to do.
Oh yeah,
a lot of opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Again, I think as a producer, always looking for more opportunities or more options, and for you to be looking that way too. It's a great story to help out the customer, help out the producer to do a better job. And as you say, sometimes we don't know what better is at times until we get there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to mention. I mean, of course, the whole point at the end of the day is to bring value to the customer, to help improve, and the animal, to help improve resilience and economic efficiency of meat production, food production, and food production animals. And so that's another thing that's quite unique. We really don't spend much time looking at mechanism until the animals have said, "Hey, this looks good. You know, this is improving efficiency, or this is preventing a disease." We have some of our, we call them phytocomplexes, because because it's complex, and we won't always know exactly what chemical is responsible. And a lot of times it's multiple phytochemicals that are contributing to the message. But we have some that can completely block disease and a challenge, and it's not killing the pathogen. It's acting at the level of the host, and the host has power. So if you can really, if you have the expertise to build these really specific targeted solutions to give the host really that kind of superpower, like, to survive the stresses production animals face, it's a really exciting field to be in right now.
Okay. With that being said, I was going to maybe ask another question here about
Sure.
application. We talked a little bit earlier on about conventional birds, since the statement recently about, Chick-fil-A made a different stance and some of the big producers stance. Still, there's still an opportunity there, I would think, for such products, for phytochemicals. Not, can we make the bird, even on whatever the current program they're on, can they respond better? Is that part of your new targeting? Is that what you see 10, 20 years?
Yeah. So, I've been a little bit surprised by the shift, but not discouraged, because, as I mentioned, in Europe, ionophores have always been used, and they are still the largest user of essential oils and medicinal plants in broiler production. And I think what we're lacking here is just a lack of development and exploration in that space. So, but it's just like you said, when we have to go, just forget about conventional as even a category, right? We have to get there to the customer and say, what are your challenges? What are you dealing with right now? What are the problems? And then the next question, could we potentially improve that with a medicinal plant? Let's understand what's happening at the level of the bird. Could we target that with a medicinal plant? And then the rest, whether it's a conventional or not is just a detail, but we have to do all the development in that context so that we can be really sure of the value that will come out, in a conventional setting. So I think that there's absolutely opportunity. I don't think it's been explored at all. And honestly, it's been pretty opportunistic, right? Like the suppliers that have products that were developed in Europe will come and just propose to test in a conventional setting. But I think actually developing the products in that setting would be much more powerful.
Yeah, I think you do have a point there. If you have U.S.-based work for U.S. product producers, that's a strong point. Not to say that products won't work, definitely. And you have a range of products for a reason. Not every product fits for every producer. Not every producer has the same need or same niche. Right?
Absolutely. And we have, like, even for our poultry, our product that we launched last year, we have customers that say, "Oh, that's an essential oil. I can use it for cocci." And we say, no. We actually did a study to show that it doesn't work to prevent cocci. It doesn't. It doesn't kill the parasite. That's not what it was designed for. But it does improve uniformity. It decreases variation. And so no matter what your management system is, if you have any complexes that are struggling with those lower weight birds, those bottom enders, this product could potentially add value. And so I think it's important to manage those expectations about what could really be expected. What can the products bring, and what can't they bring? And understanding what they can't bring is honestly more important, I think.
Again, setting expectation, that's great. I do think it's great to hear from your perspective and in your position, your view of reality, I guess, and also opportunity.
A worldwide leader in animal nutrition, 𝗬𝗍𝗋's portfolio of products includes methionine, the full range of vitamins, enzymes, organic selenium, probiotics, mycotoxin management strategies, and palatability products. With such a diverse offering, 𝗬𝗍𝗋 supports its customers with a broad range of expertise, tools, and services to help them maintain a competitive advantage. 𝗬𝗍𝗋, fueling predictable profits. To learn more, visit 𝗬𝗍𝗋 at www.𝗬𝗍𝗋.com.
I think that's a bright future. Is there anything you want to maybe finish up saying about the future, things that you want to leave the audience with, thinking about where you're thinking or NutriCo's thinking?
I mean, I would say, I think, thinking about the people who might be listening to this podcast, and especially veterinarians and nutritionists who are trying to navigate this super crowded, confusing space, I would not hesitate to insist on that educational piece and really understanding the why. And also to say that stay tuned, because I think the space is so exciting. I can feel the sort of exhaustion and skepticism that we've gotten to due to sort of over exploitation of this marketing story, really. And I'm just so excited for people to start seeing the next chapter, because it's where we're really appreciating the plants for what they can do and the power that they have without us having to manipulate them very much, and passing that on to the animals. So I think the next few years is really going to bring some exciting new developments. And I think, keep insisting on those high standards for education, for quality, for trials, dose response, really understanding the whole picture. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Okay. Maybe that's a good marketing end right there. But Dr. Wall, I appreciate your time and taking time to interview with us.
You too.
And it's informative to hear, on the development side, what's coming, what could be, and what you already have in hand. And so to the education, I guess you offer yourself and the whole NutriCo team to help support, help educate whoever would reach out to you.
Absolutely. So please, and I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. And anyone can send me a message. I'd be happy to engage and further if there are any questions or discussions.
Well, thank you so much, Emma. And I think we're going to sign off for now, and hopefully folks have enjoyed this time.
Thank you.